I don't understand, and I'm hoping you guys can educate me. I saw this come through. Ryan Martin this morning shared that Arizona, I think, APTA Arizona. Governor Hobbs just signed legislation allowing physical therapists to order all imaging. So, Dave, this might be more in your world. I can tell you over, 20 plus years of private practice, maybe there was like a handful of people that I thought might have a hip fracture, and I wanted them to get imaging just to rule out hip fracture. But is this a thing? Is this something that therapists value? Do we need to order imaging? Where are you guys on this? Dave, you shared some great posts. What do you want to talk about first?
The podcast one?
Yeah, the podcast one, Nicholas.
Okay, do you want me to read some of it or keep it short?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this guy, Nicholas Petrosky, is a DPT on LinkedIn. I've talked to him maybe briefly. I think he either went to my same DPT program or he just happens to be practicing in Philly. So he's the owner of Petrosky Physiotherapy and Performance. And he posted on LinkedIn and he wanted some help from the community, like his followers, whatever, about a podcast. And he said, for some time now, I have received the variation of different questions. When are you starting a podcast? And, basically he's wrestled with it and, there's pros and cons. He kind of listed this post and it was like pros and cons. Like he wants to, share his knowledge and insight and interview other clinicians or talk to other patients and things like that. But then it's the trade-off, right? It's the trade-off of like, is it time? Like, do I have the time to put in 2 hours a week and record? And like, would that be benefiting people listening? And he said, what if he could use those hours better to serve his team and patients, as opposed to doing this, as opposed to doing like a podcast. And so I shared it with you guys because we've been kind of talking about some things behind the scenes, but I know, there's always there's pros and cons of some new project or some new thing. And I think that would at least get us started for this morning because I wanted to share it with you guys. I think it resonates with people. There's a good amount of clinicians, and I think there's just a good amount of professionals out there in every industry that should be on a podcast or a show, and they might have some hesitation around like how and why and logistics and all that. So go ahead, Jimmy.
You just said the magic word, right? So I talk to a lot of people. People know me as the podcast guy because that's how I started, right? Background in broadcasting and radio, came to PT, and then just got super excited at the amount of like super smart people who were in the profession. And I was like, this is 2014. Why aren't these things far and wide? Why do I have to fly to a conference to get this person's insight, only to have that person's insight be to disappear? It's never being recorded, right? Fast forward less than a decade later, and you have people who are walking up to this guy, Nick. This guy's name is Nick.
Yep.
Nick. Hey man, why don't you have a podcast? Here's what I translate or boil down when I hear that. Hey, I really like I like your insights. I'd love to hear more from you. That's the what and a little bit of the why. I really like hearing from you. I feel seen, heard, understood. You can read into it as little or as much as you want. The how might be the podcast, right? And Nick is going through his pros and cons list. Brilliant. The word I wanted to stop you with is a minute ago. You said, does Nick want to have a podcast or does Nick want to be on a podcast? Many people, and it's getting easier and easier, right? When I started, it was a lot more technical. Now we do a live stream. I'm standing on my deck with a set of headphones on. We're going to flip this from just a live stream and a video to a podcast in 15 minutes, right? So he's doing his due diligence. He's doing it right in terms of, and he's right in terms of like, hey, what would it require cost wise? Little to nothing. Time wise, okay, let's say 2 hours a week for an episode, planning, putting it together and putting it out there. He's right. So if he gets to the end of this analysis, this cost benefit analysis, and says 2 hours of my time should be and could be best served somewhere else, he shouldn't do it. He shouldn't. In my experience, for me, it is worth it because I sort of like learning from people this way. So I would say he's doing it the right way by going through this cost benefit analysis. This is not trying to convince. I don't try to convince anybody. I wind up talking more people out of starting a podcast than I do in. And I'm not talking them out as much as I'm sort of sharing and letting them know sort of like what Nick is doing. And a lot of people wind up saying, oh, I feel like I want to just be a guest on your podcast. I don't want to go through the rigmarole of doing this actual thing. And that's okay. I will say now, if you did spend an hour or 2 hours a week, that information or that effort is compounded with the power of what we're doing right now. Like, we've been live for 6 minutes, and as soon as we're done being live, I'm going to flip it over to my already established podcast audience. Now, these things are investments. I've been doing my show for 8 years. Tony, Dave, you've been doing your various things for years and creating content. If it's not worth it for you, you shouldn't do it. If it's not a hell yeah, it should be a hell no. But I like his process, and he arrives at the bottom line like, you know, what did he want? What did he at the bottom of the post? What did he wind up with? Like, all right, so I'm not going to do it, or I, you know, still need information, or.
He ends it with 2 questions. To start a podcast, I would need to see an area where I could provide exponential value, ? And then he said, anyone have any guiding thoughts? So I don't know. Did I tag you? I tag you guys.
I don't know. This also could be, and I don't know, Nick, right? But this also could be it genuinely worth him asking, or this could be a zigzag. This could be him like, you know, lots of people have asked me to start a podcast, and I'm holding back a little bit. I don't know, 2 hours, is it worth it?
He's already started it, is what you're saying. He's already started behind the scenes.
Or he's already decided we're going to do it, and we're going to play this little we're going to play this little game like, you know, I don't want to do this, but tell me how pretty I am, and maybe I'll show up for the Miss America pageant. I don't know. I don't know this guy. Could be either way. Neither's bad, by the way. Not taking shots.
Well, my thought is this is really similar, and I talk to you guys about this, to what we do in physical therapy, right? So we've got a patient. The patient is not used to exercising, and the patient's like, well, how do I resolve my shoulder pain? Well, you know, we can start an exercise program. The patient's like, oh, that's 2 hours, 3 hours a week. Do I have the time? Do I have the investment? Do I have to buy a membership? Do I have to get equipment? Like, the patient has been doing the status quo up to this point. Likely it's been 20, 30, 40 years of momentum that's carrying them through. Now we want them to change. And I had said, like, every minute of every person's day is occupied right now. There is no person that has time that isn't filled. And it could be filled with watching Netflix. I've been sucked into the Viking series, and every minute I get that I'm not doing something, I flip on Netflix and watch 5 minutes of it to just get caught up. So it's this person, Nicholas, you know, he's busy, he's doing things. And I think it's even harder because he's probably doing things that make him money. There's a reward for what he's doing. And now you're going to switch and you're like, man, I'm going to be speaking into the abyss. Nobody's listening. Is it worth the time? Is it worth the effort? So I always think about with my patients, like, how do I get them going down the path? How do I reduce the friction? How do I increase the momentum in a different direction? And I think if we solve that problem, man, I think the riches, you know, come down the road. So what would you guys do? Like, we've talked about projects that we want to get started. What are some strategies you guys do on a daily basis? And it doesn't have to be business. It could be anything. But like, if you want to eat better, if you want to sleep better, if you want to change a routine or a habit. Dave, let's start with you. You've got a new baby in the house. Like, everything is upended for you, I'm sure. How do you create new patterns for yourself?
Oh, man. I don't write anything down. I mean, I think I have certain things that are non-negotiables, right? So like, I think intermittently I took like a week off of this show here and there or whatever, obviously, when I had family visiting or when we were in the hospital or whatever. But there's just certain things that, like, for example, like my wife and I, like, and she knows certain things. Like, I'm putting out stuff to the Dave Kittle show. I'm doing this show. We do some cross promotion, whatever. This stuff is going to happen. Like, my wife just knows, like, but I don't waste time. I don't like dilly dally with the other things, but then also like exercise. Like, I pretty much have to break a sweat every day and exercise. And it's usually in my garage or I run, or it's in the living room, but most of the time it's downstairs. So those types of things, a small list of things are my non-negotiables. And then the other things that are maybe less important can take up take up space or become like the new de facto behavior or schedule or whatever it might be. So I think it takes, I don't know, I think it takes a lot of awareness. I think it takes some, experience and maturity, like with succeeding and failing in other areas. And so whether it's a new podcast or a new project or a new company or whatever, for me, I don't know. It's just like, I simplify, like I have family, my health and wellness, business. And then outside of that, weekend baseball, but I'm not going to a bar and, drinking with friends every night. I'm not doing fantasy sports ever. I'm not doing all you can eat, wings at the saloon, at the bar, whatever. Like there's certain things that just take away time and effort from like my main things. I have those main 3 buckets, like, family, health and wellness, and my business. And my business would be like concierge pain relief and this stuff, the video stuff, the content stuff for the mergers and acquisitions and all that. And then that 4th bucket, like the thing, whatever the thing would have to be, fit in one of those 3 things. Because if it doesn't fit in one of those 3 things, then it's going to be really tough for me to either have time or passion or inspiration or focus for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So
before we go to Jimmy, I just want to follow up on that. So what was it that flipped the switch for you, Dave, to commit to PT Breakfast Club 2 days a week? That's a huge commitment, 2 hours of your life that you're giving up. What did you give up? Because you had to give up something. And what was it that made you flip the switch to say, I am going to commit to this? Because there have been multiple challenges in front of you and you still stuck through it. What made that?
There's other things where I need to, like some things on my practice side, get a little maybe less focused. Like I talked about a full-time physical therapist that was full-time, that was going to help carry us through this whole maternity process. And then 4 months in, he's like, hey, and this is fine, like that is public, but I'd rather be part-time and half-time instead of full-time, even though like the whole agreement was full-time. And, I paid a recruiting fee, $7,200. And so, things happen, right? What I would say, some things on my practice side probably have slacked. I need to hire like a remote admin. I need to recruit and hire more therapists, whatever. But the thing with why am I doing this or why, like us 3, we started doing this once a week. I don't know if you guys remember Jimmy. I think he was really excited one day and he said, hey, we should do this like 5 days a week. And then I think Tony and I said, and maybe because I know Tony well, and this, I want to do more, but I also wanted to be realistic. So I said, I don't know if you guys remember, I said, why don't we do twice a week, which is where we're at now. So I said, instead of 1, let's go 2. I figure we could capture Maritato twice a week. We could all be doing this together twice a week. Maybe it increases over time, but I just know from my history of content and videos and interviewing folks and all that, I just know that this show and interacting with you guys is just, like I said, planting digital seeds. They grow into some other things in the future. And I have enough business awareness to know that those things that grow in the future, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something really good. And I'm okay with some of the delayed gratification right now. And so, yeah, some things might slack maybe a little bit on the business side. I can't have my health and wellness slack. I can't have the family stuff slack. And so, yeah, it kind of comes out of the business bucket.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I think I've talked about this before, and I forget who brought this 3-question test to me. It might have been someone like Gary Vee, but it's called the grunt test. What do you do? How does it make my life better? What do I need to do to get it? Right. So you use this test every day. We use this test now, especially with short form video, tens of millions of times a day. You're constantly assessing, like, is this worth my time and effort? Because keep in mind, your time and paying attention is time and effort. So how would I weigh starting a new project, or how did I weigh starting or continuing to do this? Which one do you want me to answer? I can answer both, Tony.
Both. You choose which one first.
So for this, I said, like, what is it? How does it make my life better? What do I need to do to get it? For me, it's an hour talking with people that are smart at different things that I might not be smart at. So I'm getting, right, just by giving that hour, I'm getting insights from different people. I say things like, I have never thought about that, or I never thought about that way, which means it's a topic I have thought about and I have a new perspective. So what is it? How might it make my life better? Makes me think, gives me company, right? If you want to say, like, okay, like, this is creating content, which I can do by myself. I can just turn the camera on, or I can interview people. This is different. And then what do I need to do to get it? You have to ask yourself, what am I putting in? Just like Nick did, it's 2 hours a week, right? I'm saying it's 2 hours a week, just like this, and then I do the math and I say, I'm getting more than I'm giving. New project, I do the same thing, except I'm not as calculated as everybody else. I'm a run into the fire to save the kittens way before I figure out that I'm running into a fireworks factory. I'm okay with that. I've heard Mark Cuban talk about things like this. I think I'm more like Cuban in terms of like, I'm going to say yes, I'm going to figure it out later. And if it ends, it ends. So I'd rather go in there and break a dozen eggs, hoping that one survives. I act like that. So I'm a leaper. And then I look while I'm on the way down.
Yeah. And, we all kind of have very similar modes of operation with that. I know for me, I just shared on LinkedIn a post this morning about like looking at upside potential versus downside risk. And I think when we think about physical therapy, if I treat a Medicare beneficiary, I've got very limited upside potential, right? If I'm the delivering therapist, I'm going to make $100 whatever a visit. That's it. I'm never going to make more than that for that acute hour of my time. But if I do a podcast like this and I surround myself with you guys and Scott's here and Karen and people that have been engaged with us, we're building an audience and there's literally unlimited upside potential. And like Dave said, I have no idea what's coming down the road. I have no idea where it's going to go, but I can tell you that over 49 coming on 50 years of life, I've seen more benefits from unlimited upside potential than I've seen from very capped upside benefit. So this is one of those things where to me, it's like, all right, I'm going to give something up. I'm going to commit to, minimum 2 hours a week. We're going to see where it goes. Probably for me, the hardest one is I gave up my Tuesday, Thursday runs. I don't like running in the afternoon. I love running in the morning. And this is like prime time. The weather is perfect. I feel my best. I don't have any sugar drops or anything. So that's a big sacrifice for me. But I think it's worth it. I think it's going to pay off in the long run. Now, practice owners, you're building community. I want to talk about, unless there's something else you guys wanted to mention about that, about starting a podcast or just doing something, anything.
To me, I'd sum it up: juice versus squeeze. Right? It's. I was talking to this with an organization I may be working with in the future. Everything's a seesaw, right? On one side is value. What might I get out of this? On the other side is cost. When you put everything down there, I know it's super cheesy, right? Make a pros and cons list, but really you're doing the math, the pros and cons. So juice versus squeeze, and put it on that value proposition seesaw and see where it lands.
So this is something totally off topic. I don't understand, and I'm hoping you guys can educate me. I saw this come through. Ryan Martin this morning shared that Arizona, APTA Arizona. Governor Hobbs just signed legislation allowing physical therapists to order all imaging. Yep. So, Dave, this might be more in your world. I can tell you over, 20 plus years of private practice, maybe there was like a handful of people that I thought might have a hip fracture, and I wanted them to get imaging just to rule out hip fracture. But is this a thing? Is this something that therapists value? Do we need to order imaging? Where are you guys on this?
Yeah. Dave, you go first.
So first of all, Ryan Martin is the man. I had him on my podcast. We discussed diagnostic ultrasound, and I commented on that post. I said, "Hey, Ryan, I need to get you back on my pod so we can discuss this." So I will give my thoughts without the full understanding, because I need to hear from him as to like how they would use this in the medical model or like the therapy model and all that. And then obviously therapists that are watching or listening, they're going to ask about like reimbursement, and apparently it's possible, maybe it is state dependent and all that. This, I think, is, in my opinion, it's different, Tony. It's different than the practice style that you're accustomed to. That's why you have a lot of ingrained behaviors, as I do, as we all do. And so something like this, all of a sudden, like, I totally understand. And it makes sense why you're like, is this even feasible? Does this even make sense? Or like, who cares or whatever? But orthopods are kind of taught this approach, and like they'll x-ray almost everyone, right? And like we just don't, because like we didn't learn it in school. We didn't have the ability to order, and so it's just not in our normal workflow. I think as we talk more, or we see more around primary care physical therapy, I know there's different folks that you guys have spoken to that are doing this type of stuff. That's why we started doing diagnostic ultrasound. We have a lot of patients that come to us that reach out to us in New York City that don't have a primary care physician, or they have not been to an orthopod. So in those cases, like, I guess, we could just refer back to the orthopod as opposed to ordering the x-rays. These are some things that I would want to ask Ryan Martin. But moving forward with, reimbursement crunch and finding more ways to have out-of-pocket services, cash pay services, building more margin so that we can stay in business and help more of our communities, I do think imaging, including x-ray potentially, but definitely diagnostic ultrasound, could have its place with physical therapists looking to be more, I'm not saying the only primary care provider, but being more in the forefront of primary care, because more people are on Instagram, more people are on TikTok, they're seeing physical therapy videos, they're calling their physical therapy offices, they're going right to the PT practice in many cases. And this is something that could help, rule things out, just have a differential diagnosis, maybe assessed or figured out before you go in and manipulate that hip or whatever it might be. So that's kind of like my opening statements, although I need some room for adjustment after I speak with Ryan Martin.
Okay.
What are you thinking, Jimmy?
This is two things. This is external and internal. One, this is a tool, and I've done some work with APTA Orthopedics. There's a guy by the name of Bruno who is terribly fired up about imaging, and this guy is an expert on it, and he will bring you the numbers. He has the receipts of what happens here, right? So we're going to see, like, someone from Bruno and APTA Orthopedics with their special interest group in terms of imaging. They're saying, like, listen, when PTs can do this, it's cost savings, it's better, it gets people to the better care faster. I can't refute Bruno and the receipts. He's got that, right? The other thing that I think this is internal validation too. And saying it's both of these things, it's not saying it's bad. But this is I think us fighting to show other people that we're smart and we can provide things and we can do this too, and we have enough education. And I agree with both of those things. It's not bad to have both of these things. But this is an external thing saying cost savings, better for patients, agree. Again, Bruno and APTA Orthopedics and their live streams, go look at their YouTube channel, which I help produce, but it's got good information on there. And they have the receipts. They can show this thing helps cost savings. It gets people better care. It helps get people better faster. Hard stop. The other thing, what is this? Why are we fighting so hard for this? Is, physicians might say, like, well, watch out for scope creep because we've got the physical therapists over here and the chiropractors. They're sort of right? So we're looking for other things to expand because we know we either expand and grow or atrophy and die, right? So I think this is one way people can look at and say, well, if we could order these things, I see what you're doing over there. I'm the younger brother. I see what you got ice cream. How come I don't? I'm deserving of ice cream. So I think it's one of those things. It's a little bit of validation. It's like, we do have the credentials. We do have the education. We can use these things. And when we start to, that comes to my first point, is there's the receipts.
Scott said, yes, I'm glad you brought up the Arizona announcement. And like I said, I am completely ignorant to this, so please bear with me. I just know, I've got some exposure to the chiropractic market. I know that 20 years ago, every single human that walked into the chiropractic office got an x-ray. Now they've moved almost completely away from everybody getting an x-ray. My understanding is that MRI imaging is just so inconsistent. There's that classic case where a woman goes to 10 MRI imaging centers in 3 months, I think it is. She gets 10 completely different diagnoses with almost no carryover between them. So I'm like, if imaging is inconsistent at best, we're not going to be doing surgery anyway. Now, I hadn't thought of, I think it was Dave's point, where, okay, maybe this is opening new doors if we're going to be the primary care providers of musculoskeletal service. Maybe there is a point there. Maybe therapists are thinking, well, I'm going to bring imaging into my office, and that's going to be a new revenue opportunity for me. With Ryan doing the ultrasound, musculoskeletal ultrasound, like, is this something that he would need to be able to have access to ordering imaging to do the musculoskeletal ultrasound? I don't know. I really don't. I have no idea. But talking about these topics just reminded me, Paul Stein from Strata PT had shared this. I know it's not too big, but I'll just read it real quick. There's a massive opportunity to make more money in physical therapy world. Let's explain. And he goes through, there's a certain amount of money you can make for the minimum standard of care. There's a different amount of money you can make for the best outcome for the patient. There's a delta between the two numbers. And he talks about virtual coaching, digital products like courses, online programs, and physical products like, exercise balls and massage guns. What do you guys think? So does this play in? Does this mean that we're going to see clinicians that are bringing imaging into the office, or is this going to open new opportunities for like acute care? We used to take walk-ins. We weren't in urgent care, but I had an orthopedic office across the hall. We would take walk-in evaluations. So if somebody needed it immediately, I could see anyone just about any day I was in the clinic. What are you guys thinking about any of that stuff?
I like that theme, because the ability for example, let's just say physical therapists that, let's just say today, they now can order x-rays in every state, let's just say. And I play weekend baseball, and I've treated like half of my team, half of my guys, maybe more than that. And let's say I'm playing and I'm there, and I see, like, I don't know, they roll an ankle, or there's a collision or something, right? Something where it's like, oh, that, like, that sounded like a pop, or that sounded like something that, or like a very common, getting hit by a pitch in the finger, the thumb, or wrist. Yeah. Oftentimes results in a fracture. Let's just say that specific situation or incidence. You get hit by a pitch, and it's either fracture or it's not. That there's no muscle tear. There's no reason initially to do an MRI, but why couldn't I just say, hey, let's go get that x-ray, or here's a referral pad, a script, whatever. It could save the healthcare consumer. Maybe we talk about downstream, the insurance companies with getting people better faster. Maybe they would like that. Maybe they would actually spend less money and they would save money. So then the insurance company maybe makes more money, and maybe that's why they would be interested. But for my buddy who, let's just say, just got hit in the finger by a pitch, I say, hey, let's go get you x-rayed, depending on where I can get you in, or I schedule you, or, refer you to somewhere. That patient could potentially get an x-ray a day or two or a week sooner, compared to if they have to wait until Monday morning and they have to call an urgent care or go to the urgent care, or they have to, wait in line or whatever, or call an orthopod and get in later in the week. There's access, there's the component of access, there's the speed to treatment. And if there's more, if it's faster to treatment, then potentially the outcomes could be better. Maybe there's less downstream effects in terms of the insurance is looking at these patients in like a risk pool. And if we can get patients conservative treatment sooner, maybe an x-ray from a physical therapist versus an x-ray from an orthopod or whatever, maybe these patients can get better sooner. They have less issues and things downstream from that if it's not addressed up front right away. So that in terms of speed to access, maybe there's value on the patient side to save money and time. The therapist gets to be the conduit to do that potentially. And then maybe there's even a payment upside on the insurance.
I do want to commend 3 physical therapists for talking about this topic for about 8 minutes and not using the word toolbox, because this is another tool in our toolbox. Right, guys? Number 2, where's our toolbox? But that was the first thing I thought, but I held off on saying, I was like, one of these other guys are going to say toolbox. I'll hold that out. I go back to, what is the actual value you provide, right? What are the core tenets of the things that we provide? Do I think that, providing imaging is nice? Sure. Do I think it's on the periphery of what our value actually is? I do. I think it's on the periphery of the value. Do I think it's great that APTA Arizona is advocating for their constituents? Absolutely.
Scott says, I have a tool chest.
Yeah.
Scott, I'm going to say sometimes I'm just a tool. So going back to this, yeah, 100%. Like this is why I have a podcast, because it introduces me to new concepts and new ideas. I can get so stuck in my own head. In my own head, I'm so used to the referrals that I always see. But, you know, Dave talked about baseball. 2 of my 4 boys broke arms playing baseball. If I could have had access to just a quick x-ray to rule out fracture, like I would not obviously want to do things until I rule out that bone fracture for a sprained ankle, for a, you know, impact injury, anything like that. But I don't typically see those in my clinic. Now, if I have access to it, opens up a whole new opportunity for me. What do you guys think about it? I don't know if we ever talked about it on the podcast. If we're going to talk about acute care, primary care, musculoskeletal issues, what about a walk-in clinic? You know, if are you willing to, what are your thoughts on, neither of you are really in a situation, but I have a physical location. I can take walk-ins. I've taken walk-ins. What do you think about PTs getting into that, almost like a musculoskeletal urgent care? We can open virtual. We can do telehealth. I've said 100 times, if I was a parent on a soccer field, 9 p.m., I don't know if I want to go sit. The urgent care maybe is closed. That means a trip to the pediatric ER. I don't know if I want to sit there. I don't know if my soccer athlete even, you know, has to go, or could it be something that's managed at home? I get family members that call me once or twice a month, like, hey, my son did this. What do you think? What do you think? Urgent care, walk-in, PT services?
I love it. So in terms of sourcing potential partnerships and acquisitions, we've sent letters to an OuchMed urgent care in New York City. I think they have like 2 or 3 locations, and it's co-owned by a PA and maybe an orthopod or a non-surgical orthopod or something. So it is OuchMed. It is literally what you just said. It's an urgent care that's like musculoskeletal only. So you don't go there if you have a cough. You go there if you have a sports injury, like an ache and pain, you know, weekend warrior, runners, whatever. My thought, because I sent them letters and they haven't responded, and they're probably not watching this, but if they ever watch this, reach out to the Filmmaker Group, reach out to Dave Kittle. We would love to partner with you guys or acquire or have something. And so I think it would be great to combine forces, or we talked about a hospital before. Hey, absolutely. We could absolutely hire, or we could, you know, hire one physician if we need oversight, and then 1 or more PAs or nurses or nurse practitioners.
Yeah.
They're absolutely, or maybe kind of, Tony, I don't know, you can correct me. Maybe you were thinking the walk-in clinic is just the physical therapy clinic. So kind of like Concentra. You go to Concentra. Have you guys heard of Concentra?
Yeah.
So Concentra has like, it's a little work comp. There's the work hardening stuff, but people go to Concentra. It's like an urgent care, but then they also have physical therapists in the same facility. One of my buddies, my best man in my wedding, was a physical therapist and a clinic director at one of the Concentra locations. Patients would get evaluated, and oftentimes they'd get referred to physical therapy. And obviously it was right across the lobby, right down the hallway. That type of thing, there should be more of. And that is how, with cash pay services or more value, or more, like we talked about, how can another topic, like clinicians making more money or having, you know, more money in the mix with what they make, that could be absolutely a solution. A walk-in clinic, a musculoskeletal clinic, and you just, you know, market it, you advertise it. Jimmy doesn't like it, but.
Well, I'm surprised, because 2 C's come to mind, right? Number 1 is cost. Like, are you in an area, are you going to get enough people with this problem, understanding that you solved this problem when they need it to be solved, to pay the rent, right? So it's cost and culture. I mean, I'm 44 years old. When I was a kid, we didn't know what an urgent care was. If you had a problem at 3 a.m, you went to the emergency room. I think I was in my 30s before someone was like, why don't you go to the urgent care? And I'm like, is that what you call emergency rooms down here in Virginia? I was in grad school. They're like, no, it's like emergency room, urgent care. It's not as urgent. It's not as emergency. It's just urgent. So my thing you have to now change culture again, This is a walk-in, because right now culture says you go to your doctor tells you when to go to a PT. So I don't know if I would leap for this clinic, but I do like what Taco Bell and KFC have done, which is, do we need standalone restaurants? Are we actually competitors? Friend of my podcast, Rebecca Griffith, she sort of is 3 steps ahead, as she's a physical therapist in the emergency department at her hospital system, and she teaches other hospital systems why putting a PT in their emergency department is valuable, like we're talking about here, and then how to do it, how to make it ROI positive very, very quickly. So would I open up, when I sign a lease on the corner of, Madison Avenue and 76th Street? I don't know, because I would then need to create culture change, and that is hard. But the easier thing is, hey, gym owner, do you mind if I set up shop as a PT in the corner of your gym? And you're like, yeah, because that's where the people are. That one makes sense. Hey, urgent care, what if it's an urgent care down the street and you say, push this easy button right here, and I'll run up the street in the beginning whenever you guys might have a patient if I'm available. So I don't know if I take the leap to opening this as a business model just yet. Personally, I would need to see it work maybe in a collaboration first, because it's culture change.
So let's talk about a couple of those elements, because every one of them struck a chord with me. And I'm going to do it kind of in reverse order. So doc in a box, right? For a long time, CrossFit boxes, they were out there trying to bring PTs in. And one of the things that I talked about was, I think it was with Dave, how if I was contracted with Medicare as a physical therapist, and there was a CrossFit box that had a physical therapist who was cash-based, I could do the eval, it's covered service, and we can open up a plan of care for the cash-based provider. What about, and I've shared this idea, making myself available to multiple CrossFit boxes? We know injuries happen in the box. We know as a box owner, if somebody does something, an acute injury while they're in a CrossFit class, the quicker I can get them taken care of, the better. And so what we want to do is, I could be the available urgent care physical therapy provider. I could bring that person onto a virtual telehealth visit. I can rule out, really true acute cases. I can give them some information. I can direct them to an emergency room or an urgent care. But this is all premium service. So now what happens is, if I'm going to do that, to Jimmy's point, it can't be the same price as if somebody schedules an appointment 3 weeks in the future. This is a $300 to $500 service. This is a multi-$1,000 retainer, but there's opportunities there to be the true doc in the box, virtual acute care services for CrossFit, for yoga, for Pilates. Going to culture, exactly the same thing. When I was the primary therapist in my physical therapy clinic, where we were across the hall from 2 orthopedic surgeons who specialized in spine care. They would have a ton of patients that didn't need surgery, but they needed some acute services. They would just walk them across the hall. Even if, and I want to share this for other therapists who are like, well, wait, if I have a full patient schedule, how do I take a walk-in? Even if I had a patient in front of me that I was scheduled for a 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. appointment, and there was an acute case that walked in, I had the facility so that I could always take that person, even for 15 or 20 minutes, a little bit of pain relief, a little bit of peace of mind. I could do an evaluation. I can show them 2 or 3 things. There was never a time that I couldn't do that. And I never had an angry patient on the other side who said, well, I booked an appointment from 10 to 11. I want all 60 minutes. But it's a cultural thing. It's, I, the therapist, am comfortable doing that. I, the therapist, can communicate with both parties to make sure that neither party is upset or angry. I could never make one of my other employed therapists do that, because they didn't want to do that. And it wasn't part of, what the experience they wanted to deliver. So if I built a culture around, hey, let's do it. We get to walk in. We're going to take them. We're going to take care of people. We're going to, open this up to multiple opportunities. I think that could be built. And in regards to, is this something that I'm going to go, full into, open physical therapy, urgent care sign on the building? Probably not today. but I think it's something that people could start introducing. And if we go into the business with the mindset of, I'm not doing what's always been done because I'm going to get the results that I always got. I am going to do something different. How do I optimize for this result? And it's going to be a lot of telehealth. It's going to be a lot of, marketing to a new community. But man, if you were in the soccer world, if you're in the girls gymnastics world, if you're in any of these worlds, because you have kids in it or you have a connection to it, you see the opportunity for this all day long.
Yep.
And you instantly become the provider of choice for that.
Yeah. Meeting that person where they are, but they have to understand do you have a problem that I can solve?
Dave?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree about culture, and either you would need to, kind of like almost retrain your staff and make sure that they would be on board for this. And maybe some of them are and some of them aren't. And then, in Tony's situation or my situation, like for me, we're always going to be hiring. So the next physical therapist, it would kind of be like, hey, like, here's the role. It's the current role, this role, like the established role, but then also these other things here, like for example, if we were on call for, 6 different CrossFit boxes or whatever, I agree that has to kind of be baked into either the job description of the next hire, or, getting buy-in from the current, one or more team members, which sometimes is possible and sometimes is not possible. And again, yeah, it goes back to culture as well. I think this could be a transition to the Josh Funk tweet about how does he get more money into clinicians' hands? Could we go there? Because I can kind of make this connection, because the connection here for me would be, okay, so I think in the private chat, we were talking about you guys said aside from cost per visit or volume.
Well, Josh was saying besides seeing more patients or seeing patients longer, I believe. So essentially, instead of doing more hours, how can you give more money because Josh is a business owner of Rehab to Perform. He's like, how can I pay my people more? Which is, if you work for a company and your CEO is asking this question, that's a good sign, because he's looking to turn over every rock and say, like, okay, what am I missing? What are other people doing besides just saying, see more patients, do more evals, keep people on your schedule longer? How can I pay my people more?
Well,
go ahead, Dave.
Well, the business case is you have to have some people stay on the schedule for some amount of time. But in terms of his question and my immediate response is like, well, we talked about before, we're not going to increase the insurance reimbursement. So if Josh Funk or any other practice owner out there, I agree, it's an amazing question to be asking, and your staff should love that your CEO, your owner is asking this question. But for me, my immediate thought is like I want to go right to like a fix or a solution. And for me, it's like, then clients have to pay more out of pocket. Whether it's different services or they're paying.
There it is, different services, right?
Either different services or like a concierge fee, which I know a lot of people are not going to like, but let's say every January 1st, they pay $1,000 or $2,000, or they're paying, I don't know, $100 a month, literally just like a sidebar, like membership so Josh Funk, his practice is Rehab to Perform. And let's just say, like, if you really want to get more money into your clinicians' hands, there's got to be money coming from somewhere. It ain't coming from the insurance company. It's going to come from the patient, most likely, and it's got to be other services that they want, and or like a concierge fee where you don't have to add any other services. It's just like, hey, we're charging like a membership fee. You can walk in anytime. Here's the connection. You can walk in anytime. You have it. You don't need a schedule. You're a VIP. Now, I know with healthcare, it gets a little. Some people don't like it because then it's like not everyone has the financial resources to pay for that.
Sure.
But they would want to do a walk-in clinic. But tomorrow, Josh Funk could start advertising some musculoskeletal walk-in clinic, and it would be his same brick and mortar clinic. And it would be the one therapist in each office that wants to be paid more. And now they become the de facto primary care differential diagnosis specialist, assuming that they have those skills. And then they could refer for X-ray. They could do diagnostic ultrasound. They could refer to orthopods, text the orthopod, and get them in sooner. And that person, that's value to the patient.
Right.
That's just my initial response, my initial thoughts on this.
I like to steal from other things. That was what I was taught early in radio. Picasso said, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal." This sounds like and I keep saying I'm going to do a full episode on this, but it's this B2C value pyramid that I refer to back all the time. and I want to focus on the value of access. And that's what you get. I will open my bank account right now and prove I do not have an OnlyFans. I do not subscribe to anybody's OnlyFans. But what if that's really what you're selling is access? So if I consider myself, listen, I'm still wearing the Ironman t-shirt, even though I haven't raced in like 3 or 4 years. I'm an Ironman, right? Let's say I'm going in training. This 4 to 6 month window is really important for me. I want access to my PT because he's my body mechanic, right? And I don't have time to schedule. So I want to go onto my OnlyFans, my PT version of OnlyFans, and I want to message him a picture of this or I want to send him a video, or I want to send him training results. I paid Kevin, who was a PT student at the time, to be my Ironman training coach because dude knew his stuff. And that was access to Kevin. So I knew by paying him monthly, I was getting a training plan. That was the bare minimum. By the way, call me whenever you want. So, I mean, I guess the simple way we can respond back to Josh, and Josh knows this, he's a smart dude, is to get more, you got to give more. But I think what we're also saying is to get different, you got to give different and think different, which if you follow Rehab to Perform, they do think differently. The fact that their CEO is out there beating the bushes for new ideas, which then he'll implement, because that's another thing you got to watch from Rehab to Perform is they see stuff, then they do stuff, and that do stuff is important.
Tony, what do you got?
I was just going to say, I mean, you can't, since Jimmy stole a quote, I'll take one. You can't expect a different result doing the same thing, right? The definition of insanity. And so when we're looking at this, I mean, it genuinely breaks my heart every time I'm in a Facebook group and I see somebody basically saying they need to make more money. The go-to solution is always pick up PRN, do extra work, see more patients, build more units. Like, that is not the solution. That is such a finite return on that investment. Now, everybody here who's watching this, 40 viewers right now, you're basically indirectly paying $100, $200, $300 for access to us, because that is money you could have been making if you were seeing a patient right now. But the reality is you're sacrificing that money to be with us, or you're listening in an AirPod while you're treating. I've been known to do that. So the whole idea here is, okay, how do we solve more valuable problems? You know, if I need to make more money, how do I solve more valuable problems? Yes, I could sell access. Yes, I could, add a concierge fee. Back to the original of this podcast is I could start a podcast. I could do something that's scalable to infinity. There are so many, it all goes full circle. There are so many things that we could do, but what we have to have, and I really think this is the barrier, we have to have time to think. We have to have time to be creative. We have to have room to grow and room to breathe. And I've been in the clinic. Yesterday was my first full day in a clinic, seeing a full caseload in years. I can't even remember the last time I did. And I'm admitting it. When I got home, I laid on my bed and I fell asleep. Like, I was mentally drained. I was physically drained. There was no chance that I was going to record content, share ideas, talk to people, answer questions, all of the things that I love doing now. I could not have done that. And that was one full-time day in the clinic treating what I wouldn't even call a like busy caseload. I know clinicians that see double what I saw yesterday. But the point is, we have to understand, okay, what's a higher value problem that I can solve? How can I usually find in my world, I probably take 1 or 2 big paydays a year. And when I say a big payday, I mean like a 6-figure payday. Now, that could be a real estate investment that I exit and I get a 6-figure, income profit from that. But if I can get 1 or 2 big paydays a year, my year's covered. I'm happy. I can then spend the time with you guys, talk, converse, think creatively, go out and exercise, do the things that I need to do. So those are me solving more valuable problems. And that's what I found. But somebody like Josh, I mean, hugely successful, huge practice, lots of clinicians, creating tons of value. I do think it's more challenging to figure that out for, multiple therapists as opposed to just for himself or just for ourselves.
Well, I mean, I like the fact that he's doing it. I mean, he does a lot of different things. If you look at Rehab to Perform, look at their content. they actually produce really, really great outbound business to consumer content. So by all means, go steal their method. I'm sure Josh would love the challenge because they're always sort of one-upping themselves. I think you're right, Tony. Jamie Schreier and I had a conversation not long ago where he sort of shared how he structured his week, and one of his days of his week, and this is like first world ability to have this problem. One of his days of the week is like thinking about how to solve these problems, right? We all have a running list. I got the notes app on my phone. I'm like, I'll get to that. And Jamie's right. If you never make time to get to it, you never get to it because everything always comes up. You got a baby crying, you got a power outage, you got to figure that out. So if you don't plan for it to actually think, but thinking looks like a waste of time, man. You're just sitting around, not really doing anything. Like, can't you be productive? Can't get anything done? Those big ideas can turn into big returns, but it's hard to do those things.
So guys, let's think about parting shots. We're going to wrap it up here. I'll tell you guys every single episode. It still surprises me. I don't think any of us come in thinking, oh, we're going to hit a common theme throughout the episode.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But every single episode, there's that common theme, and today we were talking about how we kind of sew the thread through, is this commitment worth my time? Am I going to get the return on the investment, whether it be monetary return or knowledge, experience, social connections? I think generally what I would leave today's audience with is we have to solve more expensive or more valuable problems, and that could be a podcast, that could be a new service, that could be changing the direction, pivoting what your physical therapy clinic is doing. But if we can solve those more valuable problems, we have more resources then to dedicate to other things.
Did we share this on the screen? Scott said, Jimmy, you are a pretty smart guy. Your style of communicating is off the charts in a good way. I just wanted to mention, Jimmy's going to be Jimmy's humble. He's, but I was like really quick before my parting shot last week. I think it was like last Thursday's episode. It flowed between us. So I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but I'm just saying it flowed like unbelievably without talking over each other. And just like we did today, where we take some couple of different disparate ideas and we kind of sew them together in a way. It's not easy. Maybe we make it look easy. That's just I just want to say, like, last week, I think was the best that we've done. And I think today was pretty darn good as well. Not easy. I don't really have any, I don't know if you guys need to reply to that, but I just feel like there's a difference now of doing this for, I don't know how many months we've been doing this. Difference
repetition,
now,
man.
When we started. Yeah.
Yeah. Repetition helps. All right. So what's your parting shot?
All right, parting shot. I think I like the idea of the access, either the musculoskeletal walk-in, the urgent care style of physical therapy. I like that. Again, it's okay if you're watching or listening and you've been in the profession for decades and decades or whatever, and it doesn't resonate with you. That's okay. But the healthcare consumer is changing. More people are spending money out of pocket. Co-pays, co-insurances, premiums, everything is more expensive. Healthcare consumers, whether they use ChatGPT, Google, Bard, whatever, Bing.com, whatever they are using, Yelp to look online, healthcare consumers are paying more out of pocket, and they're saying, I need to be the leader of my decisions, whether it's my health and wellness, whether it's healthcare, whatever it might be, looking for restaurants, whatever. More people are becoming the leaders of their whole health and wellness journey. And so that's why these ideas around access and whether it's concierge fee, more value, paying your physical therapist more, whatever, a lot of these things can be connected, and it's not for everyone, but I think there is room for that in the physical therapy profession.
Yeah, I would say pay attention to what you value in terms of the businesses, the products, the apps, the things that you purchase or spend time with, because again, as Tony pointed out, spending time with a podcast is still paying. I mean, whatever you're worth, you're giving that. And then boil it down to the elements of value. What value? The example, could you create your own version of OnlyFans, unfettered access through some sort of app that you could answer or respond to a question or a query? What do they value? What are you good at? And how can you provide that? And that's a value proposition, my friends. And the next jump that happens is something that someone's talked about already. The next jump in healthcare, Someone is talking about it right now, and everyone's looking at it going, that's dumb. That's never going to happen. That's so stupid, right? We're going to sell books on the internet? That's the dumbest idea I ever heard. Well, Bezos can't hear you right now because he's on his yacht selling books on the internet, but he understood what values he provided. And then when people understood that value proposition, they got over that culture change. You're putting your credit card online and making purchases, and a couple of days later, these things will show up, and I can no hassle return. He understood his audience's potential objections, and he solved for them. That's my parting shot.
All right, guys, that was amazing. Thank you so much for being here. We'll catch you next week.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com, or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.